Insoluble, this is indigo in its natural form, which is blue. And the vat is designed to solubilize it and make it so that we can dye with it. So in its soluble form, it's actually this amber color, and in its insoluble form, it's blue. All the oxygen has been taken out, and every time we stir it, then we help it to balance out. So it takes whatever's indigo. When you stir it, it mixes all of those, the lime and the zinc up with the water, and it resets itself to dye again. There is a certain protocol with indigo, almost a reverence, if you will, about being very gentle when you dye, inserting your cloth gently, because the whole point is not to introduce any oxygen. It's like it's an oxygen-free environment, so we don't want to introduce no splashing, no, lots of, no kicking, no screaming, no swagging, lots of bowing and saying thank you.
Yes.
Lots of reverence.
Yes. We spoke early in the summertime about bringing this to the community. The thought of we're really bringing something to life. Something is coming to life here, some new life form. And you speak of indigo as a sacred being.
Yes.
And that really, really resonates with what we are doing and all about. That it's the sacred art as the sacred practice, the spirituality of creativity and creation and creating. So this is a blessing. Even, in fact, your workshop is called Blessing the Blues.
Blessing the Blues, a journey into the joy of indigo. And it brings, there's something about the vibration of this color that I think is really magical. So indigo was first discovered in 3000 BC. So it's the oldest dye known to man, oldest natural dye. 3000 BC, a fragment was found in Thebes, which is Upper Egypt. I looked it up. I'm thinking, Thebes, where is Thebes? So it's very old.
Yes.
And it's been through a long process, and now I think more people are becoming interested, because it's also part of that idea of slow art.
Yes.
And doing slow and thoughtful work. And so it kind of encompasses all those magical components. Yes.
And from there, with this indigo, the other thing you're introducing us to, which is amazing gift to the Valley and the studio and the students and members, is the art of Shibori.
Yes.
And so maybe do we want to shift, and
we do.
We can.
So this book here by Yoshiko Wada is called Shibori, the Inventive Art of Japanese Shape to Resist Dyeing. And Shibori has been around, I think, since the 700s, and maybe even before. It is the technique of shaping your cloth through stitching, binding, pleating, any number of things to create a pattern on the cloth. And of course, the Japanese have figured out ways to create very distinct patterns by doing very specific things. And you can see from this cloth here, these giant kumos, yes, circles. This is the
Leather.
yes.
Oh
it's
my
the deer
gosh.
skin.
It's a deer skin.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
So beautiful.
So this
So
was
soft.
kind of gathered up and tied. The idea behind this, and I think this shows it beautifully, is that indigo, because it's a natural dye, has a way of seeping through the cloth and creating marks that are different than anything else. This is a paper piece, and this pattern was created with chopsticks, and many chopsticks. And this is my favorite shibori. So take the end here.
Oh, I have tears in my eyes. This is extraordinary.
And so when you pull this out, so these are called kumo, which translates to spider web. And what happens here is this is done on silk organza, and silk organza has saracen in it. So if you don't wet it and you let it dry in that position, it gets that spring back and creates these little points. And so it really is quite wonderful. And there are a lot of people who have created pieces, just left these points on and created pieces that you can wear that are full of points.
Oh,
Now,
yes, please. I want pieces full of points to wear.
So in this piece here,
This
shows you a bound kumo and what that looks like. Feel
So
how
that
hard
is
it
what
is.
you did.
See, yes,
Yes.
it's very, very firmly done.
Yes.
And then here it is taken out and left in its place. And then here it is ironed flat.
Oh, ironed. Okay.
So
okay.
you can
Wow.
you can go many places. The
Yes.
to make it exciting.
So here's another one. Is this the same
Yes, now
process?
yes, and we are going to do this in class.
Yes.
So this is actually called, I think it's makiagi, and it is a motif, a pattern within the motif. So this was just stitched in a circle, which we're going to be doing the stitch shibori, and then once it's bound up with the leftover thread from stitching, then we bind it straight up like this. And so here, the sample I've done, just to show everybody how we do it. The knots are all, each row is done individually. And once you stitch all the rows, and I went in two opposite directions because I thought that might be kind of interesting, then we start to pull up.
Okay.
But we have to spray it with water to get a very tight pull
yes.
up.
Yes.
So you can see here, these pieces are pulled up so tightly.
So
Feel
tight.
how firm that is.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that is
strong.
what blocks out that's what provides the resist. And we also soak these in water. And water, in this case, acts as a resist as well. Yes, so wetting them, if we put them in dry, the indigo will bleed through your pattern.
Okay.
And sometimes you want that, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
So it's called karamatsu, and it is linked circles, and depending on how many rows of stitching, so it's continuous stitching all the way, and there's 3 rows. So we'll have a little, so it's actually this would be folded, and then each one of these stitched all the way through. And yes, and I've done a kind of a fun piece where I alternated triangles and circles.
Beautiful.
So we'll see what that looks like.
Yes.
And
what I'm seeing is straight stitch.
This
stitch.
is all stitching.
Nobody has to be worried about their
No.
skill
Yes.
with stitching.
Yes,
It's a
most of
simple
this
stitch.
is very straight stitch. It is stitching on a fold here. You actually fold the cloth and do the stitching. A lot of it is flat. This one is called makinui, and it is an overstitch. And I actually have a needle and thread, so would you like me to demo that?
Yes.
I would say 20 years.
You've been teaching Shibori for the last
for 20 years.
Yes.
And I've been doing it for 34 years. And it never ceases to amaze me. So it's kept me fascinated and interested for a good part of my life.
In
I guess
love,
you could
I
say.
would dare say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to demonstrate makinui, which is called the chevron stitch. And the ending result is this. And it's done on a fold. And so what I'll do is make a line. So we use a water-soluble marker, and your line doesn't have to be straight necessarily. It can be diagonal,
It's just a guide.
and you can do several lines. And what we'll do is work on that fold, so that the line is just a guideline. I measure usually, because you want to leave a little bit of a tail. So I'll just cut a piece. The thread we're using, and I'm providing for the students in the class, is Gutermann's upholstery thread. You can't break it. And that's a good thing. And you notice I'm using a very long needle, because you don't really take this stitch off your needle. So you go over the top and you come in this way, over the top and come in.
Nice.
And once you develop a rhythm, and the distance doesn't really matter. What's crucial is sort of developing this rhythm. And even if your stitches are not even, that adds interest. And then you begin to slide it off your needle. And
Just like that.
just like that.
Important that folks know not only the upholstery thread, but these needles and the fabrics, everything that's in their kit that they will get.
Yes.
And that's theirs to keep.
Yes, it is.
And
Absolutely.
they may choose, if they are really taken and fall in love with indigo dyeing, we'll have the community vat. if they're a
Yes.
friend or a member of the studio, they can come and
Yes.
dye things, and we're working out how that will work.
Yes, yes, it's important that because the technique of dyeing in the indigo vat is so specific,
Yes.
it's important that the people who use the vat understand how it works and how it dyes. So these classes will be a valuable resource for getting people on board to coming in and using the community vat.
Yes. So we're close to class now. We're close to first Friday in your demo and then class.
Yes.
And I haven't checked today if we're full yet, but I know you were going to squeeze in one or two other people if that's the case.
If it's possible, yes.
And so this class is appropriate for brand newbies who've never touched indigo, who've never stitched Shibori. You've taught for, what did you tell me, over 20 years.
Yes.
You can handle any kind of student.
Yes.
As in
Yeah.
the studio. So what do you want folks to know? Maybe what are the questions my folks would have? What are they going to walk away with? What can they expect to leave with?
I would say that this class will help people to do very simple stitching and learn about the process of stitch resist and indigo dyeing. So we will be learning all about indigo and all about shibori, which is the traditional Japanese technique of shaped resist patterning. And we in this class we will be doing just the stitching techniques. So there are 7 techniques I'm teaching. Most of it is straight line stitching or stitching on a fold, running stitch. Very simple. Very simple.
Folks who follow us will be really interested in how you came to indigo. What was your journey into this sacred art?
Well, my journey started in 1990 when we moved to Hawaii. And I had heard about the Center for Asian Arts, a place called Temari. And they were teaching shibori and indigo dyeing. And so I popped on board 1990, took my first class, and absolutely connected with it in a very deep, spiritual sort of way, like I had done it before. And it was very easy for me, and I just began experimenting right away. So from there, I took a workshop from Yoshiko Wada, who has written the Bible on indigo dyeing and shibori, and a 5-day intensive, and that was in 1993. And after that, I had an indigo vat for the next 7 years at my house.
Wanted to share is, I mean, in addition to my gratitude to you for even approaching the studio, you'd been watching us since we started in COVID.
Yes.
And then, you know, we met up at our market, and I remember we were at a booth, we didn't know it yet, and turned toward each other, and it was like, oh, there you are. Like,
Barb,
I was like,
yes.
I know you, but
Yeah.
I don't know how I know you. And it was our first meeting.
Yes, it was.
And I believe it has something to do with this devoted way of life. That you are devoted to this art, as I am devoted to the studio, that you're devoted to giving and teaching, as I am devoted to, you know, just generously giving to folks, and recognizing the sacred in the mundane, And spending a lot of time there. So this is what I hear in your years in Hawaii on the island,
Yes.
your 7 year of that there, these other times, this immersion with your teacher, and how you've continued 30 some years later.
Yes.
This is still your art. You're still exploring. You're
Yes.
still in
yes.
love and still bowing to the indigo.
I am. I just feel that indigo seems to take on a life of its own. And that blue, the energy of that natural dye, there's an energy about it. It's hard to put into words, but there's something about the way it penetrates the cloth, the way it colors so deeply, and in order to get those very dark shades, it takes successive dips. And so sometimes you may dip something for 2 weeks, and so it requires patience, and it requires a slowing down. Of course, that's always been kind of hard for me in the sense, not the patience part, but in the sense that I'm dying to see what it looks like. And each time but I also know that to get the color I really want, I have to be patient. So it just becomes, for many, I think indigo, and especially in Japan in the old days, indigo was a way of life.
Indigo was a way of life.
Because
Melissa, I feel like we just had a class today. And the next step is the demo on First Friday,
yes,
where
yes.
people can learn more. Even if they're unavailable for the class on Saturday, come out Friday night, get yourselves into the studio, meet Melissa, watch her demo, watch her open
Yes.
this piece, and then if you are able to join us on Saturday, you can go to the website www.openendedexa.com. That EXA is for the expressive arts, and register for the class. That's
Starts at 9:30
to 4. There'll be a lunch break. Are people?
Yes,
Did we decide they're bringing
30 minutes. Yes, they
bring
need
their
to bring
sack
their
lunch.
Bring
their own lunch?
And a 30-minute break, and we'll start right away with stitching and learning all about the indigo vat and how it works, and how it works in conjunction with the stitching.
Yes.
So,
And it's just the beginning.
it is just
You're
the beginning.
excited to really bring
Yes.
this first batch of students, this little cohort through, and then continuing to do that, and then continuing to develop those students
Yes.
that really
yes.
want to be mentored with
Yes,
you.
yes, I am prepared to do that.
Yes.
Because Shibori is so rich with so many possibilities. So just stitching is just the tip of the iceberg, just the very beginning.
It's the baby step.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Thank
you.
you.
Melissa.
Thank
Thank you.
I'm
I
in
can't wait.
full gratitude for all of this, for this opportunity to share the things that I love with the community. So I'm very excited about that.
Me too. And see you soon.